Hello all, welcome to Sand Compounding. This is Sandeep Anand. I'm starting a new series called 20 for 2030. And what does that even mean? For investors in investing, the formula of compounding, which is very powerful, and the formula is P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power N. And N is an exponential factor. N is nothing but, we all know, it's a time invested, time we invest in the capital is invested in a business, or the tenure as we can call. And the tenure or longevity of our investment is very important because if we make investments in businesses that can sustain for 10 to 12 years with a good level of growth and at the right valuation, we are made home. The returns on the capital invested would be very high. Now, how do we find businesses which can run and which has such longevity of 10-12 years, especially in today's world of disruption? Every business is getting disrupted. Erstwhile, no wonder Warren Buffett, the legendary investor, used to find businesses which are least disruptive and that can run for a long time with growth, and he called it as moat. While moat investing, I don't know if it's really that relevant in today's generation because all businesses are getting disrupted with the advent of digital and mobile and internet. Now, identifying such businesses is a very difficult task, and I have tried my best to find out 20 such businesses which can pay way till 2030, and come 2030, in hindsight, these businesses would have been great to hold for such a longevity period. Now, how do we find these businesses? I've applied the principle of inversion, which I learned from Charlie Munger, and we look forward to 2030, and when we look back in hindsight, the inversion principle, based on that, what businesses could and why those businesses could sustain till that period is what I've done. So here are such 20 stocks, and one most important thing, not in investing, not all businesses are great investments at all point of time, but most point of time. So there could be reasons being valuation is one important factor which can control the time when we enter into a business. If there are frothy valuations, our returns would be mediocre. So it's very important to identify great longevity, great businesses which has longevity and at the same time that has good growth and the right valuation. So, but this could be a blueprint or a watch list that we can use to identify, and when the correction happens or recession happens, these great businesses could be a great entry point, could give a great entry point. Hope this gets interesting as we move on. The next business in 20 for 2030 list is AWS, which is the cloud arm or the technology arm of the leading e-commerce player globally, which is Amazon. Amazon is not an unknown name even for shareholders or for people who order their products daily on their e-commerce site. But I'm more sanguine about the prospects of the technology arm, which is AWS. We cannot just say AWS as their cloud platform alone, but they come with a comprehensive suite of technology products, including cloud security and analytics and a whole gamut of products that comes along with a suite. AWS as a cloud workload transformation has just scratched the surface because the cloud migration is not even 40-50% is yet to be done enterprise wide, and next decade very well could be an cloud journey and cloud transformation for many of the enterprises. And with the digital and technology advancements and the mobile penetration, cloud and data are going to be even more pronounced in terms of growth in the next decade. AWS of course has leaders like Andy Jassy, who has done phenomenally well, and they are solely responsible for creating such a powerhouse in technology in the last decade. And I feel still the management still has a focus to be one of the top 3 or maybe a leader in the cloud and data transformation in the next decade. And let's analyze more in detail why Amazon and AWS specifically, which could be a spin-off candidate, is part of the 20 for 2030 list. Now let's get into the detailed introduction to AWS, Amazon Web Services cloud business. As we said, it's a pioneer of cloud terminology and the whole revolution of workloads in cloud. AWS is the cloud business segment of the largest e-commerce player in the world, and that's Amazon. Now it's growing at a very rapid clip, and AWS got forged serendipitously a decade ago by Andy Jassy and team when they were trying to solve Amazon's internal goal of better and faster service to their merchants that involved building services and elastic computing. This was in like 2006-7, and starting there, they have never looked back. The cloud segment of Amazon has radically rewritten applications, technology applications and software applications are hosted and serviced in the technology landscape. Now, AWS being the leader in the cloud, IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service, and hosting market in a wave that's permeating every industry sector, like whether it is financials, whether it is retail, in every sector from US government to even Apple and Netflix and banks like Goldman and Barclays running on AWS. The main driving reason that companies are moving to the cloud is because of the speed and agility and the ability to innovate at a much faster clip than before. So the turn to time to market is much faster than erstwhile the conservative way of application development and deployment. Second biggest reason is the cost of cloud is subscription based and variable OPEX than an upfront CAPEX of infrastructure for the companies, for the customers. So they can they don't have to capitalize this. They can just depreciate or amortize the cost of cloud as a subscription based month on month or year on year. Now the third biggest reason is the capacity management prone to the consumption, which helps many small and startup firms pay only for use. So startup firms especially are capital starved, and they need they instead of raising debt at a very high cost for application development and deployment, they can just outsource this to the AWS cloud platform, and the entire infrastructure is taken care. And this is a very low cost model, pay only for use, subscription based services, and that helps the startups to quickly get into the prototyping and developing applications into the beta stage and launching these applications. So that is a very successful model, and most successful technology startups have built their businesses from scratch on AWS. These are the companies like Pinterest, Airbnb, Slack, Netflix, and Robinhood. Netflix, of course, started on-premise but eventually moved to AWS. Now there is Andy Jassy saying we are still at what I think of is the early stages of the meat of enterprise and public sector adoption of cloud in the US, and he says that outside of the US they are about 12 to 36 months behind in the cloud adoption, and depending on the industry or the country, we are still at the beginning of this titanic shift to the cloud. As per Andy Jassy, he says it's only 3 to 4% that has been achieved today, and as per that, there is a huge potential of cloud transformation and workload transformation that is yet to happen. So that's a great opportunity, and AWS being the leader in the infrastructure as a service and hosting and a host of software as a service that could be deployed on their infrastructure, they are leading the whole transformation of cloud. Now Amazon Web Services, this is a pictorial view of all their products that they have. They have across the spectrum from compute, the famous products being EC2 and Lambda. They have the container service, then they have the storage called S3 and the elastic file system EC2. And they have the database DynamoDB, Elasticache, and Redshift, which are all famous and kicking in from revenue standpoint. They have the analytics platform, and with machine learning, and so the key products are Amazon EC2, which creates servers in a minute. Amazon RDS, that is a dedicated instance of databases in minutes. Then the S3, which is a secure data storage with zero latency. Then the Elastic Beanstalk, which is the developers no longer need to manage the infrastructure, it's taken care by AWS. And Lambda, which is the serverless computing, they have just have to take care of the coding, and developers don't have to worry about providing the necessary resources which AWS would provide. And so the entire provisioning gamut has changed, and they have giving a whole gamut of options for serverless computing with Lambda. And of course SageMaker, which is their recent venture into machine learning models. So that is SageMaker provides the ability to build, train and deploy machine learning models quickly. Now they have coming to the revenue revenues, profitability, balance sheet analysis. So the Amazon AWS is still growing very fast. They have slowed down a bit compared to earlier years, but still at a decent clip of 34% in Q4 2019 as I did the analysis and I'm writing this report. They are clocking a run rate of $40 billion annual revenues, which is significant compared to the total balance sheet, and they're growing fast. AWS is the fastest among all other business segment for Amazon, like e-commerce, and both domestic and international. AWS accounts for 12% of Amazon's total revenue, but accounts for most of Amazon's operating income because AWS is a high margin business and cash generating. It's a cash cow for Amazon, and there are currently 69 AWS availability zones across 22 geographic regions. Now AWS still has around 40% market share as of date in cloud space, but believe me, Azure and Google Cloud are also capturing the market share. Especially Azure is fast capturing the remaining market share from Amazon. Now Amazon is becoming more and more of a technology firm, and their focus is to maintain AWS at the top of the cloud pyramid by investing more capital, adding more technology services, lowering cost for customers, and also increasing fast growing partner networks. They are also investing heavily towards additional networking capabilities for the mainstay Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, to new features for the fast-growing AWS Fargate container offerings. So containers offerings are also getting attention from Amazon Web Services. It also includes the next generation of AWS Lambda serverless deployments. We spoke about this in the previous slide. They're also investing $500 million towards hybrid cloud powered by AWS Outposts and machine learning technology. So this is something to be noted. AWS Outpost is a new venture bringing the hybrid cloud into picture, because the world is also, enterprises are transforming towards or shifting towards hybrid model from a safety standpoint, because they are looking at multiple cloud partners. They are not looking at one to de-risk from a de-risking strategy, and at the same time the data sensitivity and regulatory norms are helping with the hybrid model where the data goes on-prem, and so hybrid, they have recently partnered with VMware last year, and they have the AWS Outpost also. Now they are also investing heavily into the new age technologies like machine learning with SageMaker and many other. So we have to wait and watch how that will transform. Valuations, first of all, AWS assets valuation just in terms of land holding, data centers they own, plus the facilities are all not marked to market in the Amazon's balance sheet. Now Eloro Group estimates that Amazon, Microsoft and Google spent a combined $42.4 billion on data center capex last year, and will raise the bill by 20% this year. So they are investing significantly in the data centers also. So apart from that, leaving the asset valuation, just based on the earnings power value of the current year, AWS alone should be worth roughly around $400 billion. Now Amazon total market capitalization is $1 trillion. They just crossed $1 trillion, and so ideally half of that valuation should pertain towards AWS, which is still growing at 35%. So take it next 3 to 5 years, AWS will be worth more than the whole Amazon's market cap today. Now the other thing to be noted from whole cloud transformation has just scratched the surface and still poised to grow around 25 to 30% over the next 5 years. AWS revenue alone, as I said, 2025 could be around $120 billion conservatively, which take AWS valuation itself to be $1.3 trillion by 2025. So a long runway, long rope ahead for AWS from a revenue and profitability standpoint. Coming to the last slide, why I think AWS will still be a great business to hold in hindsight when we look back in 2030. So AWS, as I said, is the leader with 40% market share in a fastest growing segment in the technology industry today, and that's cloud. Per Gartner, worldwide public cloud service market is forecast to grow 17% in 2020 to a total of $266.4 billion. In that, IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service, is forecast to grow 24% year on year, which is the highest growth rate across all market segments in cloud. Now this growth is attributed to the demands of modern applications and workloads which require infrastructure that traditional data centers couldn't meet. Now AWS is generating huge cash flow every year and operating income to reinvest. They are reinvesting very perfectly on cloud technology landscape and machine learning to bolster further growth, revenues and growth, and also to improve the customer appetite in cloud. Now, low-cost infrastructure, faster time to market, and seamless integration with other products on the cloud is alluring more and more enterprises to adopt to cloud. Now, according to Andy Jassy, cloud just scratched the surface. 60 to 70% of remaining growth is still ahead, and one can really, visualize on what the coming years could pave way from a cloud transformation standpoint. Hybrid cloud model is becoming a norm in the enterprises, especially financial firms where data control is sensitive. AWS recently launched Outpost and partnered with VMware to take advantage of the hybrid models in the coming few years. Now, total addressable market is still way huge, and there is enough leg room for multiple cloud players. Plus, AWS is continuously inventing new products like Lambda, SageMaker, Outpost, which are all tangential to the new areas of explosive cloud growth. So hope this was helpful in understanding the AWS and the cloud business growth potential for the next decade.